Before you bleed, it's like a bottling up of this energy that's about to go. And that bottling up can feel uncomfortable, but it's just like the medicine. It's just like working with a plant medicine. It's revealing to us our blind spots, and it's helping us to feel what we maybe have been avoiding feel this entire cycle. And it's a time to actually be with the deep wisdom beneath the irritable emotions of what it's trying to teach us and what it's pointing to. Then we can begin to create an intention of what we're wanting to release or heal or shift as we're bleeding. And so a beautiful time to connect to your womb and begin to speak to your womb and to your blood is in the last few days before bleeding, or if you can track it, the day before and the first day of your blood.
Hey guys, welcome to Elevated Conversations. Today we have the privilege and the honor to interview beautiful Torie Feldman, a lady from California. She speaks to ancestral wound healing. This is an amazing conversation with Roxy and Torie, speaking into the cycle of the divine feminine, also about witch wounds and how this is playing out in light workers and starseeds' ability to integrate their gifts and abilities, and really touching deep on the root causal emotions and lineages of freeing the ancestral lines and the power of the womb space for energetic healings and activations. You won't want to miss this conversation, guys. Welcome, Torie. Thank you so much for coming on Elevated Conversations podcast. I know this is going to be a beautiful conversation. Divine feminine energy here. We felt into the energy with your medicine, your work, your energy, and I felt very called to take this one myself personally, so we can dive deep into a lot of female energies, ancestrals, witch wounds, and all of it. So welcome to the podcast, Torie.
Oh, thank you. I feel so honored and so excited to tune in, to be of service, and to see what the ancestors want to bring through for all of the women and all the men who are interested in supporting the feminine and all the realms of ancestral healing. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So, yeah, this ancestral womb, let's explain this healing process. My experience with this has been on and off through my own healing journey. So we all know, guys, that we go into our own self first from this lifetime, and then we might start integrating some past lifetimes, and then we realize there's some ancestral lineages to break down and integrate. So please explain your work and the wisdom behind what's happening to elevate our consciousness and raise our vibration.
Yeah. What I like to say, and that many of you have likely heard before, is that as we heal ourselves, we heal our ancestors too. And I believe there is a deep interwoven connection between every single action we take, every single change we make, every pattern we break, and our lineage. Because whether we're aware of the stories of our lineage or not, even if you don't know anything about your ancestors, about where they came from, about the lives that they lived, we are embodying those patterns, and we are also carrying the nervous system charge of our ancestors. And of course, epigenetics, which is a scientific study of genes, has proven that we actually inherit our ancestors' trauma. And many people talk about ancestral healing in this lens that it's so heavy, that there's all this weight. A lot of people feel like they're the only healer in their family who's carrying this burden of these thousands of ancestors who came before them. So generally speaking, ancestral healing has had this heavy connotation. But what I like to bring into this realm are the vast libraries of ancient wisdom and the gifts of the healers, the midwives, the medicine men and women, the shamans, the many, many, many good grandmothers and good grandfathers, the warriors, the hunters, the peacekeepers, the spiritual leaders, and all of those ancestors that have lived in your line. And so even if you don't know anything about your lineage, or even if you look at your family's history that you do know and you think, there is no way that I have any healed, wise ancestors in my family line, I would invite for you to expand your perception and to realize or remember that there is so much more beyond your conscious memory, and that every single lineage, including your lineage, has healed and wise ancestors that you are able to connect to. And if you don't believe that they exist in your lineage, it's only because you haven't met them yet. And so a deep part of the work that I do, and the work that we all do, because I believe we are all ancestral healers for our own lineages, is not only to focus on healing the trauma, but also to connect to those wise and well ancestors and work with them and reclaim their gifts so that we can bring healing to the parts of our lineages and ourselves here in this life. And of course, it touches past lives too, that we are meant to receive.
Yeah, beautiful. So someone on this path, they've done some healing, they're looking to maybe create some guides to have support around them, energetic support. We often, we teach galactic consciousness and very much the star family going up to the dimensions. So with these ancestors, how would someone call that in and feel called to that connection with them?
Mm-hmm. So for those of you who are willing, I can actually guide us through an ancestral invocation
Okay.
to call upon those wise and well ancestors, because I could talk about it, but I feel that it's even more impactful to experience it. And so in doing this, for anyone who has a little hesitancy or nervousness, it's completely up to you to decide whether you're going to actively participate in this invocation or just listen and learn and see how it can be done. And in doing this, we're not calling upon all of your ancestors. We're only calling upon those who are healed and wise and well, even if they lived hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, if you're open to participating in this invocation, I would invite for you to take a moment here to take a deep breath and to breathe deep into your body. With your next few breaths, feeling your connection to the earth beneath you. Really feeling the steadiness and the gravity and the nourishing energy of Mother Earth. And to remember that all of your ancestors who live in your bloodline have walked upon this earth. The earth remembers the sounds of their voices. She remembers their names, their prayers, their laughter, their tears, their song. All of the stories that your ancestors have lived, Mother Earth remembers. And this wisdom, this ancient memory, also lives within your DNA, within every cell of your body. So taking a deep breath into your body and feeling your connection to Mother Earth. And now, in a way that's authentic to you, inviting in the presence of the divine, known by many names: God, Creator, Great Spirit, Source. In a way that's authentic to you, calling upon this divine presence to fill your body, to fill your space. Breathing in this light. And feeling yourself here as a bridge between the worlds. You are a bridge between heaven and earth, between the ancestors and the descendants, between the past and the future, and where you stand right here, right now, you hold great power to shift the course of your lineage and your life. So taking a breath here into your heart, and if it helps, you can place your hands over your beautiful heart. Breathing into your heart and feeling your desire to be this agent of healing, this force of positive change in your lineage. And feeling that longing or that yearning within you to connect to your wise and well healed ancestors. So as you breathe into your heart, feeling this desire, this longing, and it's beyond words. It's a vibration. So letting your heart vibrate with this desire, letting it emanate this prayer of connection to these wise ones who walked before you. And lastly is the invocation, which is from this space. So those who wish, you can repeat out loud after me. From the depths of my heart, I call upon my wise and well healed ancestors, ancestors of light, ancestors with the highest levels of love and compassion. Be here with me now. I want to see you. I want to feel you. I want to know you and drink of your wisdom. I call upon you to walk with me, to bless me on my path, to offer me guidance, protection, and love. I am open and I am listening. Thank you for the precious gift of my life. Amen. So taking a few breaths here, and if you wish, you might even press pause as you feel what arrives into the space. You can open up all your senses, your inner sight, your clairvoyance, your inner hearing, your clairaudience, your inner sense of smell, your clairsalience, even your inner sense of taste, your clairgustance, opening up your inner sense of feeling, your clairsentience, opening up your inner sense of your emotions, your clairempathy, opening your inner sense of knowing, your claircognizance. Taking a few breaths here as you open all capacities of your gifts, your intuition, and noticing how your ancestors present themselves to you. Understanding that each one of us perceives our ancestors differently. Whatever you receive, subtle or powerful, giving thanks for it all. That's an example of what an invocation can look like.
Wow. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. I fully dropped in then. Oh my God, there's so many things that just came to me then. The ancestors like opened the back of my heart and they were like rubbing it and saying it's safe for you to open now because I've been working on a last shield that, is my protection mechanism. And then I saw all these indigenous people standing beside me. And it's funny because I've been calling in to talk to the birds. Whenever I see a bird flying high in the sky, it's like that I send a message to the avians or God or source, and because it's the closest to God or source in ancient cultures. And whenever I see a bird, I'll say thank you or tell God that we're all good down here, or there's something that I'll always, that's my trigger point. And it was just saying that the birds are the ancestors and they're already working with me. And this technique I've been only doing for the last 3 months. And so this was very timing. So thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for receiving it. I know we just dropped in real deep,
I
so thanks.
knew I already felt a prayer at the start of the thing and I was going to say it, but you just read it. So it's beautiful. How good. I love it. You've got a beautiful way to deliver that. And yeah, I'm sure that all of our listeners, and if you've just dropped into ancestral energy, please comment and yeah, share with us what you got because that was beautiful, very high frequency. So thank you. So that's what you do, Torie. You connect in with those beautiful ancestors. So yeah, beautiful. Um I guess now I'd like to move into like the womb healing segment because I know that a lot of our trauma does come through the womb, especially for women. And on the planet, we've been in a masculine sense. The matrix is very much built with masculine energy, and the evolution of humanity is, getting momentum into that divine sweetness of the feminine, which is beautiful. And so, with us females, the archetype of our body, we have these wombs, and males have the energetic womb, obviously. But for me and myself, my purge monthly cycle is quite strong, and I'm always releasing lots of stuff through that gate. And I believe it is the womb lineage healing. So, what can you share around, I guess, the cycle, feminine energy, ancestrals, and then offerings to the earth?
I love this question. And I'll just say before diving in, there is so much. There is an entire depth of indigenous cosmologies and the infinite mystery school that is the feminine body. And I could literally go on and on and on and on and on
I
this
know.
topic. So, yeah, I'll start by just sharing that some of you may know this, but we have all been not only within our mother's womb, but also within our grandmother's womb as well. So when your mother was in your grandmother's womb, she had within her, at 4 months old in gestation, all of the eggs that she would ever have throughout her life. And so one of those eggs later merged with your father's seed to become you. And so you existed on a cellular level within the womb of your grandmother. And there have been incredible studies done. One of the resources I'll give you all to look into if you wish is Dr. Rachel Yehuda, who studied the survivors of the Holocaust and their grandchildren. And she also studied the women who were pregnant during 9/11 around New York and the impact that those traumas had
Mm.
in the babies who were in utero and in the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors and also veterans of war. And she found that on average, the babies in utero and those grandchildren had a 70% higher likelihood of developing PTSD in their lives because of the trauma that is literally passed down from the womb and from the DNA. And the way that I really love to describe this is that for us women, especially, and for those of us who carry wombs, there is what's known as the red thread. And this red thread is the lineage of the womb that came from the womb that came from the womb. It's the direct mother line of womb to womb to womb code and transmission that's passed through the blood. And so when we work with our menstrual blood and when we work with our cycles, we have the opportunity to work consciously with our bloodline and with our maternal bloodline and all of the mothers and all of the women who came before us. And we can actually speak to our wombs, and we can work with the sacred waters of our wombs, and we can program and pray for our blood to release certain patterns and to heal certain traumas that have lived within our bloodline. And for those of you who may be familiar with the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto, who studied water under a microscope, many of you may be familiar with Veda Austin as well, who does this incredible work in the modern day, where they're able to see how water carries memory, which I know many of you may know who are listening, so I won't go too into detail on that topic. But our bodies are about 70% water, and on a molecular level, our bodies are 99% water. And our blood is the waters of our bodies. And so for some of you who may think it sounds a little far out to connect to your womb or to speak to your womb, I would invite for you to remember that your womb is the carrier of these ancient codes and all of the memories within your bloodline. If water holds memory, your blood, and especially the blood from your womb, carries the energy of all the women who came before you. So for some of you, it might be there are sexual traumas to release. For some of you, there might be anger, grief, rage, despair, disappointment. There's so much that we carry within our wombs. And it's said that our wombs, in the matrix of our womb, carries all of that trauma. And as I shared before, it can also be the code of remembrance that brings forth the healing. And so through your power of your intention and through your monthly bleed and through being in a relationship with your womb, you can actually deepen into a relationship with your ancestors. And the last bit that I'll add to this is the other side of connecting to the ancestors is connecting to the generations to come. And so our womb is a portal, not only that connects us to our ancestors, but also, of course, that can birth life. And so what life do you choose to birth? Whether you have children or not, what are you choosing to create for your life and for your lineage? The womb is this magnet, this space that whatever you give to her, she will multiply and she will create. So this is just a little bit of how womb healing connects to ancestral healing and into the matrix of all that we choose to create here in this life.
It's great because, like we shared earlier before the call, before we recorded, that you've been in the medicine with Mother Ayahuasca, and so we're big believers of the plant medicine that got us to this point, of course, and have so much respect and love for the medicine, even though the last journey certainly rocked myself and my husband Pete, and we were like, no more, we're done, like the whole thing's over, and that was the breakthrough. That's what we needed. But through that process was deep ancestral lineages, and it was a sexual one for for what you're speaking to before. And I've done some work around the sexual energy, a little bit of trauma in my childhood around my stepfather and that energy. But the medicine, it took me to another place of this ancestral healing of the sexual lineage in the feminine in my family line. And I basically lay with this energy all night, and to the point where she made me believe that my father had sexually abused me. And it's interesting. This is a very different perspective that the shaman, I had to get debunked with the shaman after ceremony. So it was like a trickster energy to make me purge and really do the heavy lifting in the eyes of that belief. And then at the end, it was shown to me that no, it was for the lineage that belief was planted in my psychedelic journey to help me to really process the depths of this. And once I did that and understood it at the end, as the sun was coming up on the Yahe night, my God, I saw these black snakes coming from my feet. And the shaman helped me to understand that the black snakes are the roots of the sexual abuse in the family line. And that 6 or 8 hour process was actually getting from the root of the earth, from the ancestors. And this work is so powerful. Like, we speak about this through the womb and all the rest of it. And I tell you what, this is real. This stuff's real. And it's deep. I think the deeper you go with this journey of healing, the deeper the contract goes as well, because you're signing up for this work and breaking these cycles and helping clear 7 generations forward, 7 generations back, they say, in Indigenous cultures. So what you're teaching and what you're describing here is very much mirroring my most recent experience, like within 3 weeks. So thank you so much, because it's very timing that we're having this podcast so I can digest that information, reflect, and ground in for the integration. So thank you. So wild.
Wow.
Mm,
Thank you so much for
mm,
sharing. It's so powerful, that work that you said yes to doing and
mm,
clearing for your
mm,
lineage. Just really want to witness you and anyone else who's had a similar experience, whether with the
mm,
medicine or within their own heart, womb, body, mind, life. It
mm,
is the deepest work that we can do. And
mm.
I'm curious for you, through that experience, it sounds like there was a lot of healing of this trauma and release of this trauma. What was the gift or the wisdom that you received through it?
Yeah, so the intention was for the night was show me how good it gets in the divine union with me and my husband. Like, we've merged with our souls, we've loved ourselves, we've graduated the beliefs, dropping beliefs and opinions of others, and done a fair bit of work in this way. And so this was the route to unlock more divine union in a higher elevated state of realization, of coming together of two souls. And that was the anchor that was holding me back from moving into complete divine trust with the divine union of the masculine from the sexual abuse from males, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for doing that. And I feel like many, many women who are here, or anyone who's listening, really can imagine or can relate. Many of us are carrying the patterns or the wounds of our ancestors. And especially for women, there is so much healing to do around the
Mm,
masculine.
mm,
And we hold all of those old relationship patterns, all the abuses, all of the traumas within our bodies and our nervous systems. And
mm.
that's why there are so many types of healing that we can do. But ancestral healing, like you said, it goes to the root, like those black snakes that we're showing you, like we're taking you to the root. That
Oh,
is why
chills.
roots, or literally, it's very often the root of the healing that we're trying to get to. So
Mm,
this is what I found through doing this work with women and through the womb, and also related to the witch wound and
yep.
ancestors, is until we go to that root, it's like we're trying to treat the symptom, we're trying to treat what's above ground. And so I just want to witness you so deeply
Oh, thank
in
you.
sharing that story. And for anyone else who's listening, that if you've been really wanting to get to the root, to begin to explore your ancestral roots, not
Mm,
only those conscious stories that you know, but the memories that live deep within your body, deep within the tissues of your fascia
mm,
and your womb and your past lives too. It all connects.
mm.
And often, as we just shared, when you heal a deep trauma, you receive a gift. And so, how incredible that this was a part of the healing that you needed to come into deeper union with full trust.
And I've felt it with Pete since, there is this magnet of love and this closeness, that I always wished for as a little girl, which I didn't have. And so it's an opposite now. And that's the reward, like you said. So really want to acknowledge that for, the sake of me even acknowledging it as well, because I haven't actually had space to digest that. And you're making me a little bit, well, I'm making me a little bit sensitive with this. It's beautiful. Yeah. So nice. Every girl's dream, I think. So there is hope for some of us girls. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So let's talk about the cycle. And I know that you've got good practices with giving an offering at moon cycle time. So when we've got our period as women, we're offering to the earth and giving back as a kind of ritual or ceremony and respect and honoring of the ancestors. So can you share that process, what you do perhaps, and how that can elevate or plant seeds for the next 28 days?
Mm, absolutely. So it's amazing because once again, we could go on and on about this, but where I actually feel called to begin is in the luteal phase, which is the phase just before menstruation, before
Okay, good.
bleeding.
Yeah.
So a week or so before you bleed. So that's a really good place to start because
The
many of us know,
psycho phase, is it? The psycho phase?
yes, the PMS, the infamous PMS
Like, watch
phase.
out, boys.
Yes. And during that time, many of us feel, of course, more irritable and our anger starts bubbling up to the surface. And there are many, many, many layers to this. But what I would invite for those of you listening to start to tune into is what feels like it's out of alignment in your life and what truths have you been holding back from speaking or from living and expressing. And so during this phase, before you bleed, it's like a bottling up of this energy that's about to go. And that bottling up can feel uncomfortable, but it's just like the medicine, right? It's just like working with a plant medicine.
Mm.
It's revealing to us our blind spots and it's helping us to feel what we maybe have been avoiding feeling this entire cycle. And it's a time to actually be with a deep wisdom beneath the irritable emotions of what it's trying to teach us and what it's pointing to. Then we can begin to create an intention of what we're wanting to release or heal or shift as we're bleeding. And so, a beautiful time to connect to your womb and begin to speak to your womb and to your blood is in the last few days before bleeding, or if you can track it, the day before and the first day of your blood. So that is a sacred, holy gateway. That's the completion of a cycle and the beginning of a new, at least as far as the number of days. Like the first day of your cycle is the first day that you bleed, and then you would count, right? But this is really a continuation. It is a deep release, deep reprogramming, and deep recoding of your what has come to the surface for you during luteal phase. So an intention, for example, might be, please help me to release and to heal the pattern of silencing the voice of my intuition.
Mm.
And when you do this, you can pray this for yourself. You can also intend that this touches and reaches all of your feminine ancestors who may have been silenced or who may have
Mm.
needed to put limitations on their expression in order to fit into a world that was not ready to receive them in
Mm.
their full feminine power and force. And
Mm.
so today, perhaps you're living in the wake of those times where there's still this protection mechanism, these walls up around your truth, around your throat, around your voice. So that's just one example of an intention. And then throughout your bleed, as you're bleeding, a simple practice is for many of us, if we have cramps, oftentimes those cramps are an indicator of something throughout the past month that we have not digested through our consciousness that's coming up to be looked at in the eye so that we can actually then say, okay, I'm going to make this change. So it's like a continuation of what the luteal brought to the surface.
So the
But
body's
it
aching to give us a trigger to listen, yeah, and to go into it with the pain, the cramps, just to make that clear, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. And you can take this as deep as you'd like to, but I would invite for those of you listening to be gentle with yourself through this process. Because very often, when we're working with ancestral pieces and we're tuning into our bodies, it's like this infinite black hole at times of like, I could just feel this all the way to the core of the earth. And that would actually not be nourishing at times. So,
Mm.
really tracking what feels in alignment. How deep do you want to go in this bleed? And you can set those boundaries lovingly with yourself, asking for your guides and ancestors to support you in that. But something that you can do as a practice is when you're feeling the cramps that are coming, beginning to speak to them, speaking to them, even as though they are the actual manifestation of an old pattern or an old voice that hasn't been heard or fully honored within you or within your lineage. So, for instance, you might speak to your cramps or to your womb and say, through this bleed, as I am releasing any parts of me that have silenced my intuition, I really want to speak to you. What are some of the voices wanting to say that haven't had a chance to speak? What are you trying to tell me? What are the messages you have for me? And some of it might be things that are direct and related to your life. Some of it might be things that don't make sense to your conscious mind. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? Those pieces that surprise you in that way are very often the voices of guides or the voices of your ancestors. And when we bleed, we are in a liminal space. This is like the most shamanic time for women. We are literally between the worlds. We are the living embodiment of the bloodline evolving and moving and growing and clearing through us. We are like woman as shaman in her deepest archetype. We are the
Mm.
crone. We are the wisdom keepers, code carriers. So using this time to dream deeply, to set intentions before you go to sleep. You might invite your ancestors into your dreams asking.
Mm.
You can listen to the invocation that we did at the beginning of this podcast
Yeah.
before you go to bed or first thing in the morning, and really journaling down, letting your intuition just speak through your pen. And then whatever is released through that time, of course, you can then offer your blood to the earth or to a flowing body of water. It's also a beautiful time to be in water rituals, even if you don't have the desire or the ability to gather your blood and offer it. You can actually work with the sacred waters and speak to waters and bathe yourself in waters and offer water to the earth as a representation of that blood and working with the waters of your body.
Mm, that's beautiful. I love a lot of what you're saying. It's giving me some tips for my cycle as well as what I'm doing already. And that's really beautiful. And I'm sure a lot of people want to dive deeper into this because this topic in particular in society is not spoken about enough. And we really do appreciate you coming and talking deeply about this. We could go deeper and deeper, I think, Tori, like really. But like back in my 3D life, I'd have my period and it was strong and, it was a man's world. And so like, if a female sitting in an office in this corporate environment while they're bleeding is very uncomfortable and it's blocking that intuition. Like they say that our womb is like a second heart. And so you're closing off your heart every single cycle, which is not good or healthy for flow and ease and grace, right? So this awareness is so important for our culture. And for males, if you're listening to this, it's so important for you to understand this, to ground this information in so you can hold space for a female going through this. And it's not boo-hooed when a female has to have a rest day or a sick day when they've got their period off work or whatnot. It's honored because the power of the woman, like you said, it's like we are a powerful portal. And the gift of the power is actually hidden in plain sight sometimes. And, the strength of the male, the warrior spirit of a male is very well needed and we need that stable as females. But it's time. The age of Aquarius is here and we are to step into that divine feminine energy, which is very powerful. And I believe that society as a whole has shut that off for a reason because it is powerful. And so it's very exciting times to remember and to connect to the womb and the ancestors to guide us home to like 5D consciousness to amazing manifestations to deep love and all the beautiful things, the sweetness that is on offer in this experience. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to dive deep into another good topic of yours that you love to speak about, and that's the witch wounds. And Pete and I have both got memories of past lives having gifts and abilities in this way. And Pete really did struggle to come out with this galactic information and our consciousness teachings at the very beginning of our journey because of a past life trigger of being hunted down and not accepted in society for being gifted. Now, the term witch is very it's been conditioned and in the earth as a evil kind of thing. So we want to open that conversation up. What can you share with us about witches, wounds, maybe anyone that's listening to this, how to handle or navigate that topic?
Mm-hmm. So, first, I'll share about the witch wound. By definition, what it is and what it means. And this wound is also known as the persecution wound. So, even if you don't have any witchy past lives or ancestors who were witches, this is about you in a past life or your ancestors who were persecuted for their gifts, for their magic, for their expression, for speaking their truth, or for being their full spectrum self in a world or in a time that that was not the norm, and that it was actually stamped out by forces of oppression or colonization or religion. So first is not to demonize the oppressor, because within each of us, we hold both the oppressor and the oppressed.
Mm.
So when we talk about the witch wound, it's important for us to say, yes, this happened. Like, I feel this deep in my bones. For example, some of the signs that you may have the witch wound is if you have trouble speaking your truth, if you have deep fear come up when you're being truly deeply seen, if you have trouble taking up space, those are the main wounds that have to do with the witch wound. So, if you shake in your boots whenever it's time for you to share your opinion on something, if you're terrified of going live on Instagram or making an Instagram post, right? Maybe just today in this modern era, to really ground it, maybe that is something deep in your nervous system, deep not only in this life, because we do have wounds in this life, right? Many of them link back to our childhood, when we weren't accepted, when we were made fun of, when we sang and someone said that we have a bad singing voice, right? Like, we
I've
carry
had that
these,
one.
and very, very often it is triggering something deep within your genetic code, deep within your
Mm.
nervous system, that is connected to your ancestors or to your past lives. And so it's not only about the witches, but we call it the witch wound because witch, actually, before this word was taken and twisted into this image of the dark hag who would cast spells and do black magic, the word witch throughout ancient cultures all over Europe was the wise woman. And there's this whole long list. I've actually made some posts and written some emails about it for anyone who's interested. In the long list, it says culture by culture what their word for witch actually meant.
Mm.
So that is something that's really important, is to decolonize and decondition what we have been programmed to believe as the symbol and the image of the witch. And when we're working on healing the witch wound, essentially what we're doing is we are healing those deep, deep fears of being hung, of being drowned, of being burned at the stake, of being stoned, of being outcast from our community or from our tribe or from our village, and reclaiming our deep spiritual gifts and integrating them into our expression and into our service in this life. So healing the witch wound isn't just about you. It's not a selfish thing. It's deeply about healing your lineage, healing your past lives, and showing up to be of service in this life. Letting your gifts and your magic shine. And that doesn't just need to mean, if you're an entrepreneur or you do sessions. This is about every moment of your life, the medicine that you get to be, the medicine that you get to embody when you let go of the fear. And many people call it the broom closet. Like, it's time to come out of the broom closet,
I love
right?
that.
So this is just a little taste of the witch wound is how can we step into our gifts and fully be seen in them without those old fears literally feeling like a death in our body, like a fear of death comes up for a lot of people when they think of being seen for who they truly are.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of light workers and star seeds, way showers that have been doing the inner work and, stepping out and using their voices, when they, first had the awakening, and I know this happened for us, being outed for what was coming through consciousness and the awareness. A lot of people that weren't really, maybe the people still in a sleepy slumber, walking around, not aware yet, they kind of did that outing. And I feel like a lot of light workers probably have witch wounding then by the sounds of all of those examples you're giving. Even going live on Instagram, I know that was a big thing for me at the very beginning on being on camera, and not so much about the message, but about that side of things, how that would be received. And for Pete, obviously, he was like, this Palladian thing's not going anywhere, and now it's on Guy TV, which is awesome. We got there. And so, but these things are all linking to this witch that's very common. Have you noticed that it's a very common energy flow to break down in these light leaders?
Absolutely. And from what I've found is it literally lives within every woman.
Mm,
And especially those of us who consciously know that we are here to share our magic and to share our
mm,
gifts that are outside of the status quo and that are outside of the box. Because it's very likely in past lifetimes and in our lineages, we or our ancestors shared our gifts and we were instantly punished or persecuted or killed for them. And I also want to speak about how it impacts men as well.
yeah, good.
So course, there's that layer of many men. We're also healers, we're shamans, we're wizards, we're medicine men, we're incredible healers who just wanted to give their gifts and who are persecuted for those same reasons. And also to speak to the layer that many of the men watched their women as they burned alive, watched their daughters, their sisters, their mothers, their beloveds drowning or hung or persecuted and hunted, and they could do nothing about it. And
Mm,
those who spoke out were also killed. So
mm,
men carry a deep trauma of not being able to protect the women, which for
mm.
many is one of their most deep desires of what their masculinity means for them is being able to protect their loved ones. And
Oh,
so there are so many layers. That's just a few of the ways that it impacts men, but it's also a very deep wound, not only within women and the feminine and indigenous lineages and perspectives as well, but also within the men. So it's a very deep wound for men to heal. And many men may carry the witch wound, even if they don't think that they're magic or connected to spirituality. Many of them closed off their hearts to their intuition, to their inner feminine, because it was unsafe for that to be expressed. And many
mm,
of them lost their loved ones and they put armor around their hearts so deeply because they never wanted to experience that again. And that armor around their hearts can result in overprotectiveness, in aggression and anger and misplaced wounded masculine, and in even wanting to silence the feminine, where at first that silencing started off as no, be quiet, we need to make sure you survive, like please, we need to keep you safe,
I
don't.
see. Yeah.
And it can lead to the shadow side of continuing to silence women but not exactly knowing
Because
why.
it's a
And
fear. Yeah.
yeah, so there's so many ways that it can manifest in men as well.
I see it as well going the other way, just to help the men out there. If you're listening, you might be a little bit submissive to standing up for your woman as well, right? Because last time we stood up for them, the which lifetime we got prosecuted, and that was a bad thing as well. And I really actually feel that for my Pete, because at the beginning he was very submissive and yes, woman pleaser, right? So it could work on the other end of the spectrum as well. Do you see that?
Absolutely, and I have full body chills as you're saying
Mm,
that.
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I see that in that divine union that we were speaking about before, him moving up and out of that. And this is just such a good conversation because, the witch, I kind of was standoffish about this whole topic, that word in particular, because obviously my own insecurities around that, my own fears. And now this integration of this energy and with your help assisting to understand it, to ground it in, to make it a little bit more normal, to really just reflect and accept has been very helpful. And I'm sure a lot of our people that are going to watch this and listen to this is going to also feel the same way. So thank you, Torie, so much for that. So good. Mm, mm,
And yeah, I just want to add one final piece onto that is that during that time when those who carried gifts were persecuted, many of us know those as the burning times in Europe, but it existed in all cultures all over the world at a different point in time, often tied, like I said, to colonization or to the church stepping in and stamping out indigenous cultures and sacred ways and rituals and ceremonies. Some of our ancestors hid their traditional practices
mm,
and pretended that they were practicing the mainstream culture. Many of those actually became a syncretic religion, such as, for example, the Yoruba Ifa tradition in Africa, when those people, many of them medicine men and women, many of them spiritual leaders, when they were taken and enslaved and brought to Brazil, those cultures, those traditional ancient African cultures, became candomblé, became umbanda, and became these traditions that looked like they were praying to Mother Mary, but really they were praying to their goddess of the ocean, Yemanja, who had a lot in common with Mother Mary. And so our ancestors often found ways for their traditions to survive. And many of them went underground, had to hide their practices and keep them alive and keep that torch alive. And so for a lot of us, it feels like there can be some imposter syndrome about stepping into our gifts or about reclaiming the wisdom of our ancestors and those traditional ceremonies and ways, the ancient mysticism and magic and spirituality that lives in our lineages. But really, it's one of the deepest healings that we can do
mm.
because those ancestors who were persecuted or who hid are waiting for us to pick that torch back up and say, I remember you. I choose to reclaim this. And all of your effort wasn't for nothing. We're still here, and I'm here to awaken and remember this magic and this healing within our lineage.
Yeah, and that's great because sometimes these things have to be hidden for purposes until the frequency is a little bit higher to hold the wisdom and honor it and not just use it for bad things. And so, I really feel like the medicine ayahuasca is starting to come out as well, and that hidden wisdom of elevation and deep healing and that assistance of that energy in that plant is now available because it's time. It's time to uncover all of these beautiful secrets and wisdom teachings. And, you're just talking about Mother Mary, and I just got chills because it's like, I don't know if you're working with Mother Mary at the moment, but you certainly are very much a mirror of her in this way. And if there was a Mother Mary, I would see that energy within you. And I feel that deeply in your heart for that, I guess, role model. I guess if you were going to choose to be someone and bring through that essence, I feel like that would be a copy and paste of her into you. So I'm sure you've got this divine, authentic soul yourself, but that thread of her energy is certainly coming through you. Do you feel that?
Thank you. I love her so much. I
Mm,
have a very deep connection to her, and I'm still such a baby in it at the same time.
mm,
She is enormous in her love and in her compassion and in her
mm.
wisdom. And yeah, it's an honor to receive these words and for you to see just a speck of her light in me.
Absolutely. I'm sure everyone else is thinking it. The way you're sitting there with the arch behind you as well. It's just like the spitting image of it. We'll have to get some images up on the screen to like
Thank you.
So, Tori, to finish up this beautiful podcast, this magical journey together today, I'd like to share with everyone your practices. Like, what are you doing to find inner peace, inner wisdom? You know, obviously, we're using modalities to help elevate us and teach us. What are your daily practices and routines? What are you keeping your frequency attuned with?
Mm, thank you. It's amazing, this question, because it changes quite often. And for me, one of my teachers, Kai Corell, he shared with me that spiritual practice is that which is done in joy. And I used to have this long list of everything I did in my morning routine. Every single morning, it was like, I pray for the world. I do this, I do this, I do that. Water prayer, learning songs, like all the things. And I shared it with him, and he asked me, what are your practices? And he really challenged me to feel into which of those am I doing out of a sense of discipline and devotion rather than what truly brings me joy and brings my spirit to life. And
Hmm.
so because of this, I do have certain practices that I do each day that are what are called in some cultures a firmeza, like it grounds you, it keeps you firm in your devotion. And around that, I really love to do what feels alive in the moment. And so for me, I light a candle on my altar first thing every morning. One of my favorite practices is doing a water prayer. I have a
Hmm.
very special chalice that is this gorgeous light blue glass chalice where I fill it with water and I speak my prayers for the day, or sometimes I sing them, or I tone them, or I just vibrate them from the core and the essence of my heart. And then I'll drink that water and I'll offer the last bits to the earth. I have a beautiful oak tree that I often like to make offerings to. And during different times of the year, I'm either learning different prayers or doing different practices. But right now, it looks like a lot of dance, a lot of
Hmm.
joy, and just wanting to infuse more passion and ecstasy into this life.
Hmm.
And for those who know the gene keys, my life purpose gene key, the siddhi is intoxication. And it's like the
Hmm.
mystic who takes one sip of wine and is drunk and mad with the beauty of life. And so I'm really trying to awaken that within me. Like everything in this life is a gift. How can I open my heart to it more
Hmm.
through joy,
Yeah.
sacred intoxication, the beauty of the
That's
moment?
sounds like a fab time over at your house. I love it all.
Yes!
I mean, I'll have one champagne and I'll be drunk in it as well these days. So sensitive. But I love the organic water prayer. I really love water prayers. They're beautiful. And I feel like some of these insights could really help some people to structure or maybe just flow with their morning routine and just to honor the ancestors, the lands, our soul, our team. Anything that we're grateful for really is nice and juicy. And with that energy walking out into the world after is just everything's good. You know, everything feels really nice. So thank you for sharing. And yeah, thank you for coming on Elevated Conversations podcast. I've so enjoyed I can't wait to tell Pete everything. He's going to be like, so what'd you talk about? Girl stuff. But it's very valuable. So we'd love to have you back on the show to dive deeper and deeper into some of these topics. I think it's very important that everyone is educated and learning about this stuff and aware. And if they feel called to that, where can they find your work?
Oh, thank you. It's been such a joy to share this time with you. I could also just keep going on forever. Thank you so much for creating this space. And for those of you who are interested, you can find me on Instagram at Sacred Ancestry. And you can also find me at sacredancestry.com.
Yep. And I'll list all your links and tag in some reels so we can get some more messages of all this wisdom out there. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Roxy. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ancestors. Loving you.
Thank you, birds.